In case anyone's worried about spoilers, I made sure this video only covers Act 1. Hornet encounters many different bosses throughout Hollow Knight Silksong. With 7 years of development, Team Sherry ensured each of them played a unique role within Pharloom. So without further delay, here's all of Silksong's boss lore explained in under 1 minute. The Moss Mother is a flying bug-like creature whose role within Silksong is to look after its young, the Moss Mares. Look after might be generous though, as they often use their babies as live bait. Native to the Moss Grotto, these creatures make their homes on top of plants where they build egg-like bundles. Their life cycles are pretty straightforward, with their main goal being, and I quote, "young must eat, grow, or die." Protective by nature, Moss Mothers carry a needle that they use to drive off any predator bold enough to enter their territory. That needle grows larger as their young mature, and eventually the Moss Mother herself is replaced by the next generation. With no real enemies in their caves, these bugs have claimed the Moss Grotto as their own. In short, they're an invasive species, though I'm not a biologist, so don't quote me on that. The Bell Beast is found within the marrow. These hulking bone-armored creatures dwell within and travel through the many bells scattered across Pharloom. Unlike most of the other creatures here, the Bell Beast doesn't speak, though it reacts strongly to music. When Hornet plays her instrument nearby, it purrs sometimes loudly enough to make you wonder if these are just oversized bell-loving cats in disguise. Despite their calm nature, Bell Beasts are also mothers. Their young respond in the same way as their parents, showing a surprising love for music and an instinct to follow along. However, Hornet quickly learns that disrupting their natural rhythm, especially by ignoring them, can provoke the Bell Beast into stomping its feet like a frustrated rabbit. Another creature found within the marrow is the Skull Tyrant. These rare, enormous skull scuttlers are regarded as the marrow's top predators. If not for the remains of their own bones, it would be hard to imagine bugs could grow to such a massive size. Their skulls are incredibly strong, helping Skull Tyrants resist attacks from above and even absorb falling rocks. Charging at terrifying speeds is their main method of attack, generating a force so strong it can flatten entire civilizations. The savage Beastfly is found across several lowland regions. As adults, this species grows bulkier and develops an extra tough hardshell mask. Despite their size, they move with surprising accuracy, lining themselves up carefully before charging at high speeds toward their prey. While they can stop mid-flight and even launch another charge immediately after, they aren't always able to avoid smashing into their surroundings. However, evolution has reinforced their shell to take much of the impact, which the Beastflies actually use to their advantage by slamming into the ground to stagger their prey. Even more impressive, their roar can summon aid from other creatures beyond their own kind, but I wouldn't really call this a partnership, since those allies are still at risk of being crushed by the Beastfly's own attacks. The fourth chorus is found in the far fields. Hornet describes this huge automaton as a terrifying achievement of Pharloom to build a construct so large and yet so nimble. The energy powering its inner workings is actually a torrent of souls, which are seen dispersing when Hornet finally brings it down. Despite this, it does have a weak spot: its neck. When a needle-like pin is driven into this joint, the whole body seizes up, freezing this hulking giant in place. Their purpose isn't clearly stated, but judging by their heavy frames and synchronized movements, they seem better suited for labor and construction than battle. Sister Splinter is a towering insect that claimed the heights of Shellwood. Like others of her kind, she uses the environment to her advantage, to the point that travelers often describe these woods as harboring flora nearly as deadly as the creatures that inhabit them. From the ceiling, Sister Splinter strikes with heavy claw-like swipes. If threatened, she retreats into her canopy and summons thorn-wrapped vines that shrink the space around her foes. Her sharp, cackling cry often heralds the arrival of her children, the Splinterbarks, though she has no issue striking them down herself if they get in her way. Despite ruling this area now, it wasn't always hers. Needle in dialogue shows the Splinters calling themselves brothers and wishing harm upon their sisters. They aren't referring to Sister Splinter though, but instead the ancient heart of Shellwood named Nylith. So basically, Sister Splinter and her children are like weeds that have overtaken the garden. But before we continue, I'd like your help on something. Share the order in which you defeat the Act 1 bosses in the comments. That way we can compare our lists and see if it affects the boss's behaviors in any way. If you'd also like to support my videos and help them reach more people, considering to leave a like and subscribing would really mean a lot. The Moorwing is a massive winged might beast that stalks Greymoor. Once bred large enough to capture workers fleeing their duties, these creatures have long outlived their handlers. With no one left to control them, they hunt pilgrims crossing the region, driven only by the urge to kill, feed, and roam. As the largest member of the Might family, the Moorwing carries its size with surprising agility. They swoop low in sudden bursts, relying on raw speed to snatch anything nearby. Their skill in flight is actually so advanced that they even learn to fly upside down. To catch prey, their original handlers bred them with long legs lined with sharp claws. Even when prey manages to escape, Moorwings have adapted to hurl spinning blades that skim the ground before curving back through the air. The Blasted Steppes are home to great Conchflies. They're part of a line of Conchflies that have grown older and gained larger shells. Once they reach adulthood, great Conchflies gain a new instinct, which is to seek out a mate to bond with for life. Despite the weight of the corals on their backs, great Conchflies are fully capable of flight. These shells are actually crafted by the bugs themselves and are specifically designed with sharpness in mind. By spinning their shells at high speeds, they turn their heads into drill-like tools. Using this, they're able to bury quickly into the ground and gather hardened shells to ricochet as weapons against prey. Partnership actually defines their lives so much that loss becomes a deep fear. When one is torn from its mate, it roars in grief, mourning a bond it can never regain. Widow is a silk-bound weaver who haunts Belhard. After someone forcibly removed her mask and restrained her own silk with the help of heavy pins along her spine, Widow no longer considered herself a part of that tribe. Despite these limitations, Widow has the power to guide Pharloom silk by playing them like stringed instruments. She uses this to her advantage to pull down bells onto any intruders. The weavers once trapped Grandmother Silk through song and silk, putting her into a deep slumber. Because a mask gives a bug its sense of self, breaking Widow's mask effectively rebirthed her. This allowed her manipulator to convince the new Widow to loosen the threads holding back Grandmother Silk, without her realizing the full consequences of her actions. Lace is a bug born entirely of silk. Crafted from the very threads of Grandmother Silk, she serves as a loyal child wanting the mother to wake. Though her design was made to resemble a child, Lace is far from fragile. Hornet describes Lace as a manic fencer, which is proven by her skill with a needle-like pin to deliver quick and precise strikes onto her foes. Wandering the Citadel for ages, Lace maintains its quiet order while remaining unseen by mortal bugs. She longs for her mother's recognition, but this yearning grows so sharp that she begins to envy Hornet, frustrated that Grandmother Silk might favor her instead. Phantom is a mournful creature found deep within the exhaust organ, a giant machine linked to the city above. Phantom's role is to expel the choking refuse drifting down from the Citadel, or in other words, the city's exhaust. In doing so, she also wove the surrounding fumes into what became known as the Mist. This dense fog blocked the biowater path entirely, further preventing pilgrims from ever reaching the Citadel. Like Lace, Phantom was also strung by the silk from Grandmother Silk. Yet, Phantom laments this fate, whispering lines such as, "She spun us to fade, she spun us to break, why us sister, why us?" These words suggest they were never meant to live for themselves, but instead to exist only as tools for Grandmother Silk's own benefit. The last judge is an arbiter of the Blasted Steppes, sworn to guard the Grand Gate. Like the others of its kind, it has one purpose: to allow only the pure to enter the Citadel. Though since pure is left to their judgment alone, it's more likely they were built to keep everyone out. Its main weapon is a Furball, a fiery incense burner attached to a chain. When threatened, it opens the sensor, igniting the incense inside and turning its attacks into sweeping waves of fire. Its armor is actually designed with a self-destructive charge that detonates upon defeat. The explosion also ends up killing the bug inside, so I wouldn't really call this a lifelong job. If I missed anything important about these bosses, let me know in the comments below. Since this is also a new style of video I'm trying, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this format. Thanks for watching.